Ever notice James Cameron's movies either begin with a T or an A? And this example, Titanic 3D. Now, when I watched this again, I noticed it has several point of view shots, and there's something about them where the actors look directly at the audience. I noticed just how effective it was in messaging to the audience that they were not just spectators, but participants in this story. That though Rose may be our guide, this story is actually about you. And how much more that is driven home when you are watching it in 3D. Now, what I find it not so much puts you on the boat, but puts you in the crowd, and not just in the crowd, but in this part of the crowd. Not merely at dinner, but at this dinner, this table, separate from the other tables. You're a part of this group and not that group. This is your bubble, your space. This is your world. Now, when they convert an older movie to 3D, I like to compare it to the original, not to criticize, but to glimpse behind the curtain and ponder and meditate on the process. Better 3D conversions crop out the elements of a picture and then do the conversion in layers. And here's a glaring example of the crop taking a big cut out of this guy's head. Now, this is an anomaly. The crops in this movie usually aren't so noticeable. And also, they'll cover things up. Notice they decide to paint over a bit of the roof seen through the propellers here. Now, later I'll show you some much bigger examples of this. When I first watched this movie, the modern day shots of the film kind of annoyed me. On some other video I did, I think I even labeled it as obnoxious. Today, watching this, I realize it's not obnoxious. It's youthful. Things begin as new and exciting, discovering treasure in the deep, not different than excited passengers discovering the most exciting ride in the world. This movie begins with newness. Now, good stories naturally lend themselves to allegory, and I feel it's quite easy to project a metaphor of life on this film. And life begins with youthful exuberance, hope, idealism, a new light. And speaking of light, look at light reflections, such as on this table leg being changed for 3D. Why would they remove a bit of light? Are they creating a paper doll-like crop of that table and light would reveal that it's static? You can tell this rope has been trimmed. Its highlights have all but vanished. Now, was that a side effect, or did reducing its light help the 3D? And this doorway to the side has a glare removed, such a minute detail. What was its significance? What possible effect could that bit of light have had on the shot? Now here they increased the light and removed the film grain, but they don't do this for other underwater shots, just something they chose to do here for some reason. Now back to metaphors. I find the boat could really represent the world in general. It's not doomed at all. It's just life. The audience, represented by Rose, walks on the boat as a child. We are born into this world by stepping on the boat. And like a child, she is initially told what to do at every opportunity. One example of this is the smoking, which the no-betters have all but extinguished from present-day cinema. That attitude is really no different than Rose's fiancé plucking her cigarette out of her mouth. Don't think for yourself. We'll do that for you. In movies, smoking is thinking. There was never a better way to depict someone deep in thought than having them draw on their pipe. Thinking is independence. Rose and Jack are the only two people seen smoking in this movie. They are the only ones who think for themselves. Now, digital smoke and breath was a major CGI achievement on this film. And in 3D, you'll notice they re-rendered it for the stereo version. And at first, I wondered why they went to the trouble to remove the original before finding out it wasn't real to begin with. Typically, a 3D conversion just leaves in the original smoke and superimposes new stereo smoke on top of it. Now, this frizzy hair is consistent with Rose's wildness, and this haircut puts a slight damper on it. Also notice the slight background change in this shot. Their elimination of detail does kind of uglify her hair. Is uglify a word? The diamond, symbolic of her captivity. I guess I might think of it as actually representing money. Our riches have a way of owning us, and it seems appropriate that it is held onto until the end, like a ghost that never leaves us. Notice they just cut out this feather, and you can see there's a crossbeam on that chair that's also removed if you look closely. Now, present-day conversion has gotten very good at handling these kind of fine details. If this were converted today, I imagine many of these changes would not be needed. Now, this boat ride of life really does touch on each phase of life. We gradually pass away from childhood to adolescence, dancing, running around, worried about getting caught, and of course no better example of awkward discovery than the sketching scene. This room feels so much smaller in stereo. 3D is surprisingly good at intimacy, sneaking kisses. Now, things seem to grow bigger in this scene. The table here is expanded. Does it look better in stereo? I also wonder if it was an easy way to cover up holes that the cropping created in the background without having to draw it back in. Notice the portfolio is stretched, but the paper is shrunk. Was that a little too tricky to make it into stereo? And why would that be? Here he gets a computer upgrade. And these flowers. Now, this is a little different because they don't really expand it that much, but they just sort of diminish the detail and push it out a little bit. Now, continuing through our journey through life, I feel the iceberg represents a change to adulthood. Not by way of birthday, but there comes a time when something hits you, and ever after, it's all about that. For many, I guess it would be having a child. I suppose it could be a career choice, like joining the army, or perhaps it's just being out of the house. But from that point on, life isn't about having fun. It's survival. It's keeping afloat. Things aren't new or shiny anymore. In fact, they always seem to be falling apart or breaking in some way. Now, speaking of breaking apart, let's look at things removed in the background. Now, notice they changed one of the TV screens in the background. In the movie, the robot has stereo eyes that are controlled through this VR machine, but that was actually invented for the movie. They didn't actually have any stereo footage. Now, here's interesting. There's a guy pointing up in the background, and they just completely pull him out of the picture. And also, there's something gets caught in their hat. Now, here, they remove a painting from the background. Now, I imagine this might create some minor continuity errors in the movie. Now here, there's a guy waving his hat that gets removed. What's interesting is through the window, you can still see him moving, but his arm has disappeared. There's also some light changes on that little doorway here. And here an extra, or a group of extras, gets removed. Again, they seem to prefer to, there seems to be a pattern of creating a clear background for interesting parts of the frame. But here's something the opposite. They take this little point and they make it more prominent for some reason. Whoever that extra is, they try and bring them out. Now, this one's quite glaring. They push this person right out of the frame. Again, are they just looking to give it as plain a background as possible? And this extra just gets cut out of the movie. Again, what purpose does this serve? Was it just to help with the technicalities? The expanded frame had been previously released on the VHS edition back in 1998. Now, not all scenes have additional information. Some are just stretched to fill the frame, as you see here. It does create a more immersive 3D environment, but occasionally puts faces and especially eyes in less effective screen areas. There is sometimes an argument that 3D is the ultimate way to experience a movie. I actually disagree. 3D conversion is a unique and wonderful experience, but it's not an upgrade. Rather, it's an exciting alternative. And there's nothing wrong with having more than one way to enjoy a movie. Now, in closing, The Boat has seen the audience go from helpless to reckless to finding purpose, and in this final act focuses more on the roles we play. For this final act, the setting and everyone in it becomes the main character. The captain is given some long scenes that informs the audience that they've now entered old age. He takes a final walk to his wheel. We see also crew, engineers, musicians, stewards, servants, and even the aristocrat grip their own respective wheels. There's an illusion that our jobs are somehow supposed to be a bridge to achieve our real selves. In reality, our job becomes us. We are what we do. It's often painful, but it's actually an honor. You see, the only purpose in life is to give it up. Every meal is a piece of something that died for me, for us. We, too, die a little every day as we give ourselves up for someone else's benefit, a setting aside of happiness in pursuit of rightness, even as the water comes up around you. And after all this, the closing shot, again, looks you straight in the eye and applauds.